All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Cadlick and Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media with a live edition of Patriots Daily here in Foxborough, right outside the practice field, as the Patriots just finished up their third open OTA to the media. So what we're going to do here is basically talk you through it, take the next 20 minutes to dump out our notebooks and talk about all of our observations. A reminder, we're powered by Prize Picks. We'll hear from them later. Also, another reminder to keep it here on Patriots Press Pass for all of your Patriots coverage throughout the offseason and the regular season. It's Patriots Press Pass. It's not just Patriots Daily, it's Patriots Beat, Pat's Interference, Greg Bedard Patriots Pod, and many other sets of content here, so make sure you keep it here. Rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. And we also have our Discord chats as well going on, so join us on Discord, clnsmedia.com/Discord. Now to the good stuff. Again, Patriots open up their third OTA to the media, and the main storyline is, if you haven't already seen it, Stefon Diggs. He was here at Patriots practice. Josh McDaniels told us that prior to practice, speaking with him, said that Diggs is here. And so basically at that point, everybody scurried to the entrance of the practice field and found Diggs, found him right onto the field. He runs out, waves to the media, and says,
nice to see y'all.
Exactly. Said, nice to see y'all amid the controversy. Is it controversy?
It's a storyline.
It's a storyline surrounding him being on a boat last weekend with an unidentified pink substance. But now he is here in Foxborough catching passes from Drake Maye and the likes. And Taylor, I would say he looked pretty good today. Looked fast, not wearing a brace on his knee. Kind of surprised they gave us a look at Stefon Diggs. I wonder if they would have done this if last week's thing didn't happen. Yeah. But nonetheless, looks pretty good today. So what do you make of Stefon Diggs and his performance at practice today?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because, of course, every ACL injury is different. But, if you go back to Kendrick Bourne last season, and he and Stefon Diggs tore their ACLs, at similar times in their respective years. Right.
Yeah.
And last year, we would see Kendrick Bourne come up. He would stretch and kind of be around the guys. But once things really started to pick up at all, you'd see him go down to the lower field. This year, Stefon Diggs, obviously, this is the first practice that we've seen him at. I believe it's at least the second that he's actually been to in terms of OTAs. Mm-hmm. But not only is he running out there aggressively, whereas Kendrick Bourne, I feel like you could still tell that he was recovering from the ACL. He did not look as fast. He didn't look as explosive. Looked like a guy who was coming back from an injury. If I didn't know any better, I wouldn't have thought that Stefon Diggs was hurt. Maybe, yes, he's like a 30-year-old receiver. There's a little bit of that, but he does look plenty explosive, especially considering the injury. So we saw him going through warm-ups and some position drills. Really, during that, he was off to the side with Ja'Lynn Polk, and they were working on, high-pointing the ball when you're working through a defender, different things like that. Really cool to also just see Ja'Lynn Polk working with an experienced NFL receiver who he can learn from and pick his brain. And then, it wasn't full speed, but during pretty much a walkthrough with the entire team, Stefon Diggs was out there, and he was participating, caught some passes. And again, that's not something we saw from Kendrick Bourne last season. So, the report that came out about Stefon Diggs potentially being ready for Week 1, I would not be surprised as someone who initially said, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, but I thought it was more likely that he'd start on PUP.
Yeah, we never saw Kendrick Bourne on the field at this point last season. We never even saw him during training camp on the field last season. So the fact that Diggs is here running through drills, like you said, not in full team drills, but like a walkthrough team drill period, he was on the field. So was Ja'Lynn Polk with that same grouping of offense.
He was wearing a yellow penny, actually, which is pretty interesting.
Clearly non-contact, for Ja'Lynn Polk. But yeah, then the two of them working to the side while team period's going on. When Polk was doing this the last couple weeks, I was like, this is not concerning, but I hated kind of seeing him away from the team and doing his own thing. The fact that it was with Diggs today, I thought that was sort of an interesting wrinkle. And then the two of them and Todd Downing were working together at one point as well during individual periods. So good to see Polk kind of taken under his wing, and also just good to see Stefon Diggs out here. In terms of some other absences today, Carlton Davis was not here. Again, just like last week, Marcus Jones not here, Anthony Jennings, Travion Williams, Tyrese Robinson, and Kendrick Bourne, who we just talked about a little bit, not here for today's final open OTA. Patriots wrapping up this week with OTAs, and then next week is a mandatory veteran minicamp. So we'll see who's ultimately here when it gets mandatory and when fines can be taken into consideration. But those guys were not here. Matt Collins was here but did not participate.
Assistant coaching, as he's been doing.
Exactly. And a couple other guys who were here but limited. Kyle Duggar, Vidarian Lowe, and Jared Wilson among them. So Another one, which we'll get to during the defensive period, but Jelani Tavai did leave practice today with what looked like a lower body injury, a leg injury. I didn't pick up which leg it was, Taylor, if you know.
It looked like they were working on his left leg, but it was tough to see because it was on the far end of the field. There were a lot of people around him. We were all trying to look with our binoculars, but it did look like it might have been a left leg injury.
So he went down, got taken off by some teammates. We'll touch on that again when we touch on defense, but Tavai did miss the second half of practice. But
also, Wes Schweitzer really quickly. He went down for like a second, but he ended up going back into the drill, so I don't think it was anything serious, but just notable. It looked like he got banged up for a second.
Yeah, so that is the absences slash injury concerns from today's practice. Let's get into the offense specifically, because I think while Stefon Diggs is the headline of the offense, I think the sub-headline is actually another wide receiver, Efton Chism. Number 86, rookie, undrafted wide receiver, was balling today. He was open basically all practice. It's funny, we were talking to Chris Price, who co-hosts a podcast with Chris Hogan, who used to be 7-Eleven, always open. Efton Chism looked like 7-Eleven, always open today. Had a good practice, caught a couple balls from Drake Maye. So I know that the offense as a whole was sort of the takeaway here, that it entirely looks pretty good. We'll talk about Drake Maye in a second, but Efton Chism looks like the real deal. Someone who, I know it's early, I know it's OTAs, but could make a push for a roster spot here.
Yeah, he really capitalized on Kendrick Bourne's absence, because Bourne is really the main Z receiver where you move him around. He kind of lines up off the ball. Efton Chism has been working in the mix. Like, he's caught some passes from Drake Maye. He's been working there. But today, with no Kendrick Bourne, he really just slid right into that role. Now, with Drake Maye, I believe he only caught one pass, but it was impressive. He caught a dig with Christian Gonzalez in coverage, and the way that I've been predicting with Efton Chism, where I know, for some reason, some fans seem to have a problem with the hype around Efton Chism. To a degree, I understand. You don't want to get too excited about undrafted rookies, especially when it's the Patriots, right? You think every white slot receiver is going to turn into Julian Edelman. I'm not saying he's anything like that. I think he's probably going to be closer to a Jacoby Myers type. But when you see him out here, he is the favorite target of every backup quarterback. Like, when you see what grouping's on the field, it's pretty obvious that the ball is going to Efton Chism. That's been a bit of a joke, like kind of half joking, but kind of serious. Today, there was no joke. He was truly the top target, and pretty much any time he was out there, he was where the quarterbacks were looking first, or at the very least, they were getting to him very quickly in their production, or in their progression. Looking through my notes to see what passes Chism exactly caught for some more insight, I had him catching from Joshua Dobbs. He caught a lot of short passes. There was a sit route. It looked like some shallow crossers as well. But one of the most impressive, I thought, was actually a crossing route that he caught from Ben Woldridge. He got wide open. Truly, there was no one in his area code, despite the fact it was man coverage. I think it might have been Miles Battle in coverage. I wasn't totally sure. It was somebody with a 3 jersey, so not somebody who's going to make the Patriots roster. But if you are working with the third team, you want to see guys dominate if they have a chance to make the roster. That's what Efton Chism's been doing. We saw more of it today. Is he going to be, the kind of guy who's going to be really productive deep or even intermediate? I'm not sure. But what I can tell you is that he continues to be efficient in his movements. He catches everything his way, and he snatches that ball. It doesn't move, and he gets into yak mode very quickly to get yards after the catch.
Let's keep going here on the offensive observations. But before we do, a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks, because Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, and all you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. There is only one series left in the basketball playoffs, and the championship is officially on the line. That means it's time. Time is running out for you to put your final takes to the test on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. Again, basketball playoffs wrapping up. The action is heating up on Prize Picks. Do you think SGA will have more than 30 points? Cook up those hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And all you have to do is sign up today, download the app, and use code CLNS for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Again, shout out to Prize Picks. Head over there, use that code CLNS. All right, let's keep it here with the offense. Drake Maye, numbers looks like 14 of 16 passing, a much more efficient day from him after he was shaky and sporadic last week. And again, we were talking at one point, not a ton of downfield throws, targets for Drake Maye. But then all of a sudden, as soon as we said it, he hit Kayshon Boutte on a nice little out/sail route to the left sideline. So he connected pretty much instantly there. But overall, definitely more efficient from Drake Maye. What did you see from the second-year quarterback? And kind of tying in what Josh McDaniels said about I thought this was interesting. We've kind of dug into Drake a little bit the first 2 practices we were here, just that it hasn't been great. But McDaniels pointed out where it's either a good play or a learning experience. Yep. There's no bad plays in OTAs. Ashton Grant, speaking before practice, said the same exact thing. We look at these things as one of 2 things. One, it's a good play. The other one, we just take it and learn from it. But on that note, what did you make of Drake's day overall here as we saw him again?
Easily his best day that we've seen this year, and I think it might have been one of the best practice efforts that we've seen from him where, yeah, the beginning was pretty shaky, and we've seen that at times from Drake, where early on it doesn't look great, but one consistent factor with Drake is that he tends to improve late in the practice, and you will very rarely see him play well early on and then struggle late, and this was one of those days where early on, like for my tracking, he had some short passes, he had a crosser to Demario Douglas, he actually threw behind him, and it popped up with Christian Gonzalez in coverage, but then in the next period he started to heat up. There was a coverage sack, an incompletion on a throwaway. Then he completed 9 straight passes. That included, like you mentioned, the sail route to Kayshon Boutte against cover 2. He also had the completion I mentioned earlier to Efton Chism, a dig to Demario Douglas, a sidearm crosser to Demario Douglas. It might have been an instant sack for Keon White, to be fair, but Drake's mobile. Maybe he would have gotten out of it. And he also, and this is one of my favorite throws that he's had in a practice, he's rolling out. He's got a little bit of pressure on the move and drops in the bucket on a wheel route to Ramondre Stevenson. So it wasn't all great, right? Like there definitely were some misses from Drake, but he didn't turn the ball over, and the throws that he made, the high-level throws, there were a few of them in a row. So, you know, there is that level of, I think Drake is okay taking the short stuff, but when he sees those downfield opportunities, like if the defense shows cover 2 and someone's running in that honey hole between the corner and the safety, he's going to exploit it. So I really did think this was one of the best efforts we've seen from him, period.
I totally agree. I think he looked more comfortable back there. He was given an opportunity to be more comfortable, too, to kind of get some of those throws. Not a ton of downfield stuff, but some intermediate stuff. I mean, just looked solid and much more comfortable. I think he's sort of starting to pick it up day after day here as he continues to learn with Josh McDaniels and Ashton Grant in front of Drake Maye. That offensive line, we can't get into details. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty here for you on who played where. But last week, Tyrese Robinson had a big role. Today, not here. So Cole Strange, Wes Schweitzer kind of come in and fill that role, fill those, I guess, that rotation on the interior. At one point, Caden Wallace back at practice. He got some run at right tackle as well as left tackle. But Will Campbell remains the mainstay on the left side of the offensive line. Garrett Bradbury in the middle as well. What did you make of the offensive line? I know that there's not a ton to glean because there's no real pass rush here, and you're not necessarily run blocking, but on the rotations overall and kind of what we saw from Cole Strange moving back and forth as well.
Yeah, I would really just say the biggest thing, Cole Strange, who was asked about his versatility, he said he'll play wherever the offense wants. He's actually been getting a chance to play at both guard spots, so really flexing that interior flexibility. Haven't seen him a ton at center. I know early on in practice he snapped, so that's still something that's in his bag. But my one takeaway I will say before I say anything too much, because offensive line is really hard to take much away other than, you know, I noticed that Trey Jacobs lost really quickly to Keon White, which you would expect. But it seems like left guard, the starting spot, and right tackle, at least the backup spot, from these eyes, it seems like both of those positions are up for grabs.
For sure. Any other offensive takeaways before we move into the defense here?
I will say we spoke to Josh McDaniels earlier in the practice. He mentioned how he's actually integrating some things that he's not used to. He's listening to his his assistant coaches to try to implement some new things into this Patriots offense. Later spoke to Thomas Brown, the tight ends coach and passing game coordinator. He said that Josh McDaniels actually had his assistant coaches come up with cut-ups of plays that they wanted to potentially integrate into the Patriots offense. So as we talk about what this could look like, I've got a piece on, Josh McDaniels' quarterback run game coming out. There are a lot of hints at what this offense could be philosophically at its core and things like that, but it's also exciting to know that we're going to see some things that we haven't seen in the past from Josh McDaniels, which is exciting for the people who were, when he was hired, like, oh no, another Patriots coach, we're doing the same thing over again. I think Josh McDaniels is a pretty self-aware coach, and it seems like he was not trying to rest on his laurels in this third stint.
McDaniels spoke before practice. Ramondre Stevenson spoke after practice. First time we've heard from him this offseason, unfortunately, after the passing of his father as well. Mentioned that Tony Dews actually took a trip out to Las Vegas to, I believe, pay respects, because he said his family sort of appreciated him being out there as well. I don't know if they did any football stuff out there, but cool to see. Especially after he was asked about Mike Vrabel checking in on him every day throughout the offseason. He also mentioned he was asked about the new offense that he's in, which obviously he worked in under Josh McDaniels a couple years ago, said that he's been yelled at plenty of times by Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick, so he has it pretty much under control. So that's what we got on the offense. Not a ton on the defense, I'd say, just as is here at OTAs, but a couple notes. Taylor, I know you had a couple. I'll just kick it off with Why do I do Jeremiah Farms, Joshua Farmer? Joshua Farmer.
It's tough.
Joshua Farmer, another solid day on the inside after not seeing him on the first time out here. Keon White, you mentioned, kind of wreaking havoc on Demontre Jacobs as well. What else did you see from the defense, especially with Marcus Jones and Carlton Davis both out in the secondary?
Yeah, so Joshua Farmer had his second batted pass in as many practices that we've been able to see. So a guy, I think he's got like crazy arm length, so it's not a huge surprise, but he reminds me of Barmore in that way, where Barmore has a very good knack for getting his hands up and batting down quick passes, where some of these guys, like, that's what you want to do. If you know that you're not going to get to the quarterback, you need to get your hands up, and we've even seen it from the Patriots. When the offense gets predictable and you just keep letting the ball out really fast, smart defensive linemen are going to get their hands up. That was very cool to see. At the linebacker level, Robert Spillane is clearly the top dog. Spot next to him. Still not totally sure what happens. It did seem like Jelani Tavai might have had a bit of a leg up in the competition. That obviously changed once he went down. I would also say at cornerback, it was really interesting. We saw with a lot of guys absent because there was no Carlton Davis. Also no Marcus Jones. So what we did see was Alex Austin and Marcellus Dial gets a decent amount of run beside Christian Gonzalez, and they were actually swapping roles. So there wasn't one consistent slot corner. We saw both of those guys who have played in the slot before get some run there. And then safety, I will say Jaylinn Hawkins is someone who I don't think I had him in my roster prediction. I didn't really see a path forward. And obviously injuries play a big part in that, and we haven't seen some guys on the field, specifically Kyle Duggar. Jaylinn Hawkins has been one of the clear top dogs at the safety spot, even when there's like mixing and matching going on. So even if by the time everyone's healthy, Hawkins doesn't have a prominent role, I'd kind of be surprised if he doesn't make this roster, unless there's a massive change over the summer, because he's been very, very active in the back end communicating, especially as a free safety, which obviously there's a ton of responsibility in terms of getting everybody aligned at that position.
Yeah, I would say you mentioned the linebackers. The one sort of, I guess, not a big observation, but when Jelani Tavai did go down, it was Jack Givens right in there to take over for him on the inside with Robert Spillane. So interesting to see how that will play out. It'll be interesting to see how what we hear on Tavai and if it's anything serious or if it's
also for linebacker, Marte Mapu.
Oh, yeah.
Marte Mapu was getting some run early.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect it, because usually when he's kind of been repping, he's been grouped with people where you'd expect with someone who missed a lot of time. But it seems like, people who've been wanting to see more of Marte Mapu at the second level, I don't know. Might be getting it. That happens a lot with safeties. That happens a lot with safeties, to protect ourselves. But, it was at least interesting to see his level of participation. Wasn't high, but it was a little more than what we've seen in other practices.
Definitely. On that note, actually, Austin Hooper and Marte Mapu did leave practice early. Mapu's been dealing with injuries basically his entire time here. Not 100% sure what's up with Hooper, but
he hadn't been participating, I think, throughout practice.
Exactly, and he missed the last OTA. So another veteran presence, kind of taking his time here, getting back into it.
While we're actually talking about Austin Hooper, Jack Westover. Learn his name. I think he's going to have a role in this offense. Brock Lampy, it felt like he had the quickest or the shortest path to the roster, considering they didn't have a fullback. Thomas Brown, when I spoke to him, mentioned how Jack Westover knows every tight end spot. He can play on the ball, he can play off the ball, he can line up in the backfield, and that's how we've seen Jack Westover used, and he's capitalized on the fact that some of the veteran tight ends aren't necessarily taking quite as heavy a workload, whether it's due to injury, whether it's due to age, what have you. So one guy that I think is not on a lot of Patriots fans' radar, but Jack Westover could have a role in this offense.
100%. Before we get out of here, a quick reminder that you are, in fact, listening to the Patriots Daily podcast, part of the CLNS Media Network. So make sure you hit subscribe right now on the channel and turn on notifications for when a new video drops on the channel. It's myself and Taylor here on Patriots Daily, along with a ton of other shows, Patriots Beat, Pat's Interference, Greg Bedard's Patriots podcast, among many others. So make sure you keep it here for the best Patriots content on YouTube. Again, that's Patriots Press Pass. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe right now. Turn on those notifications as well. Taylor, just before we get out of here, one last note. It is Andres Borregales, goes 4-4-4 in the kicking competition. John Parker Omo, 2 of 4, both wide right. Not that it's much of a competition. We call it a competition because there's two guys here. I think Andres Borregales is going to run away with it. But any other thoughts? I'll kind of let you empty out the notebook, wrap it up here. I know we spoke with Jeremy Springer a little bit before practice. Any special teams spoke as well. You were there. I wasn't. So any other things before we wrap it up here?
Schoolwork says that Marcellus Dial has improved in the second year. He said obviously that's what you expect from players, but that was good to hear because Dial was one of their core special teamers last year. Just going through my notes real quick, if there's anything I didn't bring up, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Perfect.
Yeah, Diggs, kicker
I will
battle.
say Efton Chism and Kyle Williams, the last two players out here on the field today on the jugs machine. Those two rookies looking to gear up and get after it early on in their rookie season. Morgan Moses running show, holding court on the practice field after as well with a bunch of young offensive linemen. So clearly, leadership here from Morgan Moses is the big one. Mike Onwenu mentioned his leadership has been solid as well with them on the right side, that they've both seen a lot of football, and they're working together to kind of use their knowledge to the best on that right side of the offensive line. So that is going to do it here for us on Patriots Daily from OTA practice number 3, open to the media. It is our final OTA practice next week. Taylor will be here. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in Hawaii. But you guys are going to have a
with
ton.
With a ring on that finger.
With a ring on this finger. Can you believe it? But so I'm not going to be here. They're going to be here. So keep it here. May 9th through 11th, a 3-day voluntary rookie, a 3-day mandatory veteran minicamp. I'm already in vacation mode. I'm already in honeymoon mode.
I'll let you borrow my
tell.
shirt. You're good.
But yeah, exactly. So, but keep it here. We'll be here for the rest of the week on Patriots Daily as well. So rate, review, and subscribe. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you very soon. Peace out, everyone.